either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And dear listeners, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Sometimes.
We do have marble mouth every now and then.
That's true.
If you haven't guessed it, we're doing Rush Hour.
The best. I love this movie.
Yeah, I honestly probably hadn't seen Rush Hour in a good 15, 20 years.
I will occasionally be reminded that Rush Hour exists and go on a Rush Hour binge where I want to see all three of them. I have to tell everyone, oh my god, I just saw Rush Hour. It's so good. Do you remember watching it? And then I too will forget that Rush Hour exists for a 3-year time span.
Yeah, and I honestly had stopped at 2. I didn't even realize 3 was as old as it is. I thought it was an early 2010s movie.
It sure feels that way, doesn't it? But alas, it's 2007.
Yeah.
2007.
Yeah, and I was overseas and no one talked about it, so I guess I kind of knew it existed, just never got to it.
Rush Hour 3 wasn't as advertised as 2 was,
no.
So I don't blame you for not knowing about it.
Yeah. So, Rush Hour is story by Ross LaManna, who also did the screenplay with Jim Corr. It's directed by Brett Ratner.
Oh, yes.
Stars Jackie Chan as Lee.
Of course.
Chris Tucker as Carter.
Yep.
And Ken Leung as Sang.
Yes.
And for those unfamiliar, Rush Hour is about the daughter of a Chinese consulate is captured by a crime lord, and an LAPD detective must team up with a Hong Kong inspector to save her.
And it is a classic example of the buddy cop action comedy duo. Fantastic. Not the first, not by a long shot, but one of the honestly peak examples, especially outside of the 80s, which was the king of comedy cop duos.
I mean, Lethal Weapon is the one that I think of as, the key example.
Oh, for sure. I think, for me, the 80s was, 48 Hours, Beverly Hills Cops were, the two big ones. A lot of people do claim that the very first example of a buddy cop duo movie is a 1949 Japanese film called Stray Dogs.
Oh, yeah. Kurosawa.
Yes. So a lot of people claim that that's, first one.
Yeah.
There's always been buddies, but this one's very much the buddy cop style. And then the 80s really got it popular. TV had a lot of buddy cops in every format.
Yeah, well, and I think even though, there are those buddy cops, the thing is, Stray Dogs isn't really a comedy.
No. And Rush Hour, very much a comedy, but also plays off of the Jackie Chan's physical humor and not just, the witty back and forth that we had in the 80s, so it felt fresh. It really stands out in that way, too, where it's not just, stupid slapstick. There's some really cool action scenes that happen in here. And the duo, Jackie Chan and Chris going together, is immaculate.
Well, and on top of that, I think it's because it also has Kung Fu, so it stands out from, or martial arts. I don't know Jackie Chan's background on it, so.
Yeah.
But
at this point in Jackie Chan's career, he had created something of his own style. Definitely got started as a kung fu in Hong Kong, but by this point, granted, for American audiences, most weren't as familiar at this point.
Yep, and we'll get into that because that's a big part of what got Chan into this movie.
Oh, yes.
Because our sources for today's episode include commentary by director Brett Ratner, and I guess Tucker and Chan both took some convincing to do this movie, and Ratner didn't think it was the best script, but he thought it was the best script for Chan. And so he actually went over to China to convince him of hey, for you to be big in the U.S., you have to have a good movie here. Because Chan had been in a couple American-based movies, but they hadn't done as well, and he didn't rocket to stardom the same way Bruce Lee did.
No.
And so he was back in China trying to keep that career going.
Most definitely. His success with Rumble in the Bronx was where a lot of people were starting to take notice of him and be okay, maybe this guy could really pull it off in America in Hollywood style film. But I mean, his style was so different than Bruce Lee's. And it was easy at the time to just be oh, another kung fu guy. I don't know. He had worked hard to get his style to be so unique. And I'm granted, this is still this is still early, right? We hadn't become the Jackie Chan the world knows and appreciates today. But he had already, formulated and had a group of entourage that goes with him everywhere. He had his own stunt guys who, didn't do the stunts for him. They tested to see if Jackie could do the stunt.
Yeah.
And so, like, having something big be his first film, I could see why Jackie Chan would have wanted to potentially sit and wait for, like, the perfect movie to come along. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very bold that Ratner came to him and was like, this is not the perfect movie, but I think it's perfect for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the other thing, too, is Chan still was kind of on that brink of, even during, like, the Lee-sploitation era, mm-hmm. because he was in other kung fu movies at that time, or martial arts movies. I keep saying kung fu, but probably revert to that.
Yeah.
But the thing is he was completely different, but there was speculation that he would be the next Bruce Lee, and... Oh,
for sure. I mean...
Yeah, his style just doesn't replace the way Bruce Lee was. And to be fair, at the time, Chan was still mostly doing the major stuff, the more serious stuff compared to his later goofier Fist of the Drunken Master, all that kind of physical comedy from, like, his vaudeville inspirations.
Oh, for sure. Most definitely. And Chris having because at this point, Chris Tucker was best known for his stand-up. Mm-hmm. And I think even later it's argued that, like, this movie stands out to me as one of, like, this is, for me, one of the big things I know him from, other than Fifth Element and Money Talks being his other two big ones. But the thing that really always stood out for me is he had a comedy TV show that was, like, I think on HBO or something like that. And so his stand-up humor was already well known. It continued to be well known, and it pairs so nicely with Jackie Chan's physical humor, as that vaudeville slapstick, but action comedy duo. It was untouched.
And a decent amount of the stuff he did was ad-libbed.
Oh, yeah.
But also it's kind of interesting at where this movie sits in both their careers, because this is really the first takeoff of Jackie Chan in the U.S. Mm-hmm. While on the other side, this is kind of the end of Chris Tucker being in a lot of movies. And I was talking to my mom, and I was curious about it, and it turns out Chris Tucker decided it just wasn't, like, there was more to life than doing comedy and acting, so he just stepped away from the acting.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. He left a pretty good record. Most of the movies that I saw him in, I thought were funny. Yeah, I mean, but also his humor was distinctly a 90s style humor. I don't know how much of it would have held up movie-wise if he had continued with his style of performance. Mm-hmm.
No, I agree that the comedy changes, and if you don't change with it, then sometimes you just get left behind.
Very true.
So, Chris, before we get into it, what are we drinking today?
Well, we maybe didn't plan super great for this one, so we dug around in your fridge and we found a Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Yeah, I also couldn't find anything that I thought would pair well name-wise with what we were doing, so...
No, and this one's not really a food-heavy one. If you haven't seen Rush Hour, it's mostly action.
Yeah, there's one bar scene.
There's a singular bar scene. I think Jackie Chan messes it up pretty good, so... Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yum.
And also, I don't think we could do a podcast on some Ciga weed.
No, probably not.
So, Rush Hour.
Oh, yes.
Open on Hong Kong with some credits in something shipping, which it feels like there's up to no good, and because of shady dudes in the suits. It's
so stereotypical, and even by, like, late 90s standards. This is like a stereotypical opening, but I kind of like it because it feels like it's setting the scene really well. You kind of know, like, oh, we're not going to be trying to make this super serious because we're going ahead and, like, panning to all these bad guys walking around doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. And then Chan just kind of popping up through the latch.
It's not meant to be humorous. It's just Chan is funny. The way he handles it is funny. And the way that the camera work is done, Ratner talks about how he wanted everyone, even though this is an action film, to always know where they were in, like, the set and the stage. And I would argue this one spends way more time doing that than is necessary, but it adds to the humor.
Well, it also gets you right into the action, and what Ratner also said is that even though it was a buddy cop comedy, he treated it as a thriller.
Yes.
So that way every single scene had a little bit of something in it. Like, we get the blonde dude who's up to... He gives no shits. He's just like... You can tell he's gonna be like the big baddie henchman because he's like, okay, yeah, shoot, do it, you coward.
This is true.
I dare you to try.
Very true.
Also, one thing I didn't realize, Chan was actually really close to getting hurt by that shipping container.
Yeah, granted, I've known that Chan is, like, regularly being told, like, hey, by the way, this stunt is super dangerous, and he's like, no, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on it comes out that, like, the man was inches from death.
Yeah.
This is another example of almost being crushed by said shipping container.
Mm-hmm.
Good God.
Well,
the man's lucky he's made it this long.
But you know what's impressive?
What?
Chan was 44 in this movie.
I know, and I look at him and I go, wow, what baby face. Because this was, like, for a lot of people, their big introduction to Chan in, like, American cinema. I mean, he'd been acting since the late 70s, I think. So, like, he'd been in movies. But for a lot of us, it was like, oh, this is the fresh-faced new guy. He was not.
To us, he was the
But to us,
guy.
he felt like it. Yeah, I think he was one of the older actors on set, because I think Chris was, like, 27 or something like that when this movie came out. Obviously, minus our youngest actress, who we will talk about in a little bit when she makes her appearance.
He's been acting since the 60s.
God damn, dude.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Them Asian genes.
He has aged wonderfully, because I did see a picture of him recently when I was doing research for this, and I was like, man, he does not look 70.
Man, what was it?
I guess all that working out really does you good, huh?
Oh yeah, and that's like why I like it's not the inspiration, but it's like, you know, maybe I should get back into better shape myself.
Yeah, man, the years long worth of dedicated training seems to be working.
Yeah, and the one movie that I remember watching a few years ago when like I started seeing Jackie Chan actually really feel old. And granted, I'm not up to date on most of his stuff, but when I watched The Foreigner, you could actually see it, but he also played it so well as like
that's true.
The stunts were limited, like, but he was still, you could tell he was doing them.
Yeah, that's true. That's always the fun with watching a Jackie Chan film, is that like the stunts always feel dangerous, because they are, and like the action always feels fast and well paced, because he is. Mm-hmm. And it's part of the fun of it. Like, that's part of the reason why I think Rush Hour is as successful as it is. Because don't get me wrong, the jokes in general, very funny. But Jackie Chan's, like, action really sells it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think that's you have the action, and then you have Chris Tucker,
who does a fantastic job making the talking, like, the required talking for a buddy cop movie. Makes it fun and fast.
Yeah, because he doesn't shut up.
No, he sure doesn't.
But we cut to Hong Kong, and it's the last day of British rule. Rich and affluent, they crushed the Jintao organization, which I have some questions on this, because like really just from that last scene where the blonde dude Xiao gets away,
yeah,
it's just like, but did you really crush the entire organization? Because
clearly not.
Sang's his name.
That's right.
Because, like, it just, like, it doesn't, like, you guys didn't catch the big baddie. Who's the head that you guys took down to crush this organization?
Yeah, but I also kind of like it because, again, this movie is late 90s, but it's built on the backs of all of the 80s buddy cop dramas that came before it, right? And that's, like, a huge theme that we saw pretty regularly, is, like, the crime syndicate circles never truly end. There's always somebody above that one guy. You think you've beaten him, but then the next episode, next week, you find out that he was just the henchman, or there's another guy, same level. Like, it never ends. And so I feel like I don't care or question the crime portion of this movie hardly at all.
Yeah, it's such a throwaway little bit, because we, like, unless you're, like, really paying attention, the action at the beginning feels great.
Yeah.
But then you look back and it's like, he took out 3 dudes.
He did.
That's all we see in this entire, like, that entire organization falling was on the backs of those 3 men.
But I think, okay, so this is where I think the writing is truly clever. Because you don't care here in 5 seconds, because you learn of the kidnapping, and that we're so focused on the one specific crime of the kidnapping, that, like, we really don't care about the whole crime syndicate part. It just happens to be a nice backdrop for why she's hard to catch up with.
Yeah, it's a good way to set why they were doing what they were doing, because not only did they take down the organization, the more important thing, they saved 5,000 years of heritage.
Exactly.
And then this was also where we're introduced to So Young and Lee being left behind as they're going to America, which in a very quick time frame, we get this kind of sweet uncle-like family member, even though he's technically
like a bodyguard.
Yeah,
I guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
But also fun tidbit about Soo Young, her actress Julia Su didn't want to be an actress, and rather she was but Ratner thought she was too perfect for the role, and like, come on, you gotta do this. This is like, she did one small thing after this, and she has not appeared in anything again.
She used her wealth to go to college, pay off her college. She did recently, like, pop back up on social media as, like, re-performing her, like, singing role.
That's actually not her, that's someone else.
I know that's not her. The one that went viral, not her. Mm-hmm. She did respond to it.
Oh, okay.
Which is where I found out that the only reason that she's in this movie is because she thought she was going to get to meet Jackie Chan at the auditions. And that's why she auditioned. And was disappointed he was, of course, not at auditions, because this is not Jackie Chan's movie.
No.
So she got lucky that they even picked her, and they were like, no, you will get to work with him. He's just not at auditions. Great job, by the way. And part of the reason why she's only in, like, this and, like, I think one other real movie, like, a short.
No, it's this and one other thing. That's all her IMDb credits.
And you know what? Good for her, because this movie made her a shit ton of money.
Oh, I bet. And I'm definitely getting royalties.
Good for her.
Yeah.
And she got to meet Jackie Chan.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But also the scene with giving her the necklace, it starts this chain of small details that continues on, that it's that little information that in a lot of other movies would feel like a throwaway, like, line or gesture.
Yeah.
But it has, like, the biggest meaning because it's like, oh, it's from her favorite uncle. But then we actually see it worked back in later on. And it's like, it's kind of like that aha moment of, like, kind of forgot about the necklace a little bit.
And I honestly think that it's the little details that were written into this movie that kind of keep you actually, like, watching the movie, as opposed to a lot of other action movies or comedy movies where, like, you feel like you can kind of, like, look away or go grab something because you can hear the comedy or you can, like, look up for the action portion.
Mm-hmm. But this one, I mean, I feel you technically could, but you would miss a lot of what makes Rush Hour Rush Hour.
100%. This one manages to fill its runtime of about an hour and a half to the brim. You never feel like you're bored or like you would miss something if you got up for snacks.
Exactly. And it's that moment's also quickly over as we cut to America 2 months later, where we have a typical American diner meetup for an arms deal, you know?
Yep.
Looking for some C4, or not looking for C4, he just happens to have it.
Yeah, that's a good point. He just, like, owns C4.
Yeah. Well, he said it was hard to find. Someone else is buying it up around town.
I worry about how much C4 is being sold in this town.
A lot. But it made me think of something, because I don't know when trunks stopped having lights in them.
Like on the inside?
Yeah.
What do you mean stopped having lights on the inside?
My car doesn't have lights in the trunk.
I don't think mine does either.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because like,
did they used to?
Yeah, no. He opens up the trunk and it lights up on the inside. It's like those old thick ass trunks.
I think I must have skipped that car generation. Because I went from a car that had no way of escaping if you were locked in the trunk age to you physically can't get locked in the trunk because of safety reasons. And I don't think there's a light in there for, like, luggage purposes. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it's an old thing that I did think I thought existed or didn't realize it went away.
I don't know. I don't think I have a trunk anymore to test this theory with, so I don't know.
But I do also like that because, and that's the thing with this one is there's always something happening, and it's like there's actions and they have consequences because, as we learn, this will be Tucker.
Yes.
Because he was late, cops happen to show up at the diner, and they're being very suspicious.
Yeah.
And it's also this good action of parallels between Hong Kong and US of their styles of cop movies, because this one is very not procedural, it's very formulaic and like explain of course he's an undercover cop. And
it really leans on a bunch of the American cop tropes.
Yeah, the Chinese are fast and effective in their campaigns, and whereas Tucker is reckless in the explosive American LAPD that blows up half the...
But that street was already going downhill anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, and also, the other thing too is, I do like this different, because the cops they take off, the dealer takes off and Tucker follows, but there's also a couple little small details I think really work well into it. Lee didn't shoot at his bad guy, whereas Tucker was immediately blasting rounds into the
Yes.
streets, and even the guy's like, dude, I've got C4 in the car. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
This is true. No, it is the fun little details. And granted, both Chris and Jackie had a lot of time to ad-lib or help rewrite some of the comedy or the action of this movie. But a lot of the details of, like, how they interact, what the scene looks like, is super well written in, like, a detailed way that make this movie really rewatchable. Because it is those, like, little bits that, like, first time you watch it, you don't really notice. And then, like, the second time you watch it, or even the third time, you're like, oh, yeah, look, he's just really gun trigger happy, as opposed to, like, taking time to, like, think about his actions.
Yeah, it's like the scene in the Boondocks when they're super excited about their raid and they just start firing everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, I guess Tucker researched every black action cop movie he could because he wanted to do his own take on it. And
Good for him.
And to be fair, my experience from any of that genre is like this, Shaft, and whatever other blaxploitation movie I can find, or Lethal Weapon. So this isn't. I will say this genre is not exactly my forte. I occasionally dip my toe in it.
I was gonna say the true, like, buddy cop stuff, and especially, like, the stuff that he was researching for this movie, I also am not super familiar with. Like, I watched some of it growing up because it'd just be on the air, but I was not, like, a hardcore follower. I was not a fan, so, like, it's fun to see the tropes that he picked up being carried over, because there's a bunch of, like, the recklessness being taken down, and, like, how he starts off super reckless and then he learns from his friend, and kind of vice versa. They learn to, like, balance each other. The tropes of him being like, but I'm undercover so I can do what I want.
Yeah, and I think also Ratner really helped out in that too, because Ratner talks about in his commentary of him growing up, and it's one of the few ones where I think it actually, like, really worked well into the how this movie turned out and the care that he took for it, because he had to translate all his movies to his grandfather, and who didn't speak English, and so at the time, like, he grew up on kung fu and blaxploitation movies. True. So he's like, this is the perfect movie for both of the genres that I absolutely love. Very true. And I also think him eventually getting Chris Tucker for this role sells it even better, because originally the role was pitched to Murphy and also Wesley. Wesley, like Wes Snipes? Yeah, Wesley Snipes. Murphy gave it up because he was, same year, had already signed up to do Holy Man. And Snipes gave it up for Blade, which I can't fault him for that. Great movie. I am getting all 4 Blade movies in tomorrow. Totally, yeah, like good for him, solid franchise. But I also don't see it working as well with either of those actors. Chris brings that, like, over-the-top energy that I think neither one can quite match. No, exactly. And even then, like, there's the little happy accidents in this movie that just work. Yeah. Because the Michael Jackson dance that he does at the end is so perfect. Yeah, well, it was also a fluke. They just kind of, like, do something, and that's what he did, and they're like, okay, that's too perfect. I don't have a better idea for this. No, yeah, his ad-libbing and his, like, quick thinking really brought a lot of character to this movie. Mm-hmm. But it's also we get double action, and they pair it with action, non-action, action, non-action, because we get to the Chinese consulate. Mm-hmm. We have, and here's what I like about this. Like you said, Ratner wanted everyone to know where they were at all times within the world of this movie. Which is great, because a lot of kung fu films, boy, we are up close and I am dizzy. Yeah, we've gone through 3 locations in 10 minutes, but focused on 5 people, and each person feels unique. Yes. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like, I have no trouble remembering who is who. Names, maybe not, but I know what people do what in this movie. Mm-hmm. Well, and also, like, I do like the little details, because, like, Soo Young seems to be doing really well. Mm-hmm. And even, like, the little hang-up on when her dad has to answer the phone and she goes off to school, it sets that ominous tone of, like, okay, there's still stuff going in motion. She's already singing American songs, even though she doesn't know what the song's about. That's true. Great scene. And then they get pulled over for some reason, and I don't know why they pull over. It's one of those things in an action movie where it's just like, it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. It does. Well, it does matter. It does matter, but the reason why they turn doesn't matter. Exactly. And I do like that delivery. Is there a problem? No problem. Just rush hour. Bam, bam. It's so good. And again, it's saying, and I like that so Ratner spoke that he wanted someone who had just, like, could do an evil face and you could know that there was no intention behind it.
I love that this movie doesn't try and confuse you on who the bad guy could be.
No, but I also think making him with bleach blonde hair sets him apart and makes him iconic from just any other generic villain. And
it lines up with his love of the Hong Kong action kung fu movies, because that's a pretty telltale sign of oh, he's a bad guy or he's a gang guy, is oh, I've bleached my hair, I got the frosty tips.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a little stereotypy, but this movie is so LA, it's so 90s.
Yeah, it's one of those characters that the moment you see him, you know shit's not going to be going well on screen.
And the little earrings are such a good touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and poor him too, because he actually got kicked in the face.
Yeah, I feel bad for that.
And also, you do feel bad for the girl because she is such, for the little time we've had her, she is such an innocent little thing.
She does a great job portraying the sweetest little girl.
Oh yeah,
because apparently she was very mature for their role. They're no, we want you to feel really schoolgirl, and she's like, schoolgirl, got it.
Studious. But we do get some exposition and the FBI dropping the news to Han. But even though this scene could have been not as impactful, I think what it does show too is his faith in Lee, because they're we're on it. He's like, just an FYI, I have a man on the way. We already ordered him, and you know that the moment he got that message, he's already on
the plane.
Yeah, no, exactly.
He's been sleeping in the airport waiting for the call.
Yeah, and it's a nice little scene to be like, okay, but it's also one of those ones where you could easily overlook it of that little bit of detailing.
The care is what sets him apart and over the top, and granted, this is a buddy cop where the lesson learned is really more balancing each other out, but it's those details that make Jackie Chan's character so much more believable, and why he is cautious, why he takes his time, why he's so thorough, and so why he's so respected. Those details make him so much more believable, as just opposed to oh, he learned to cool down because the guy he was with was kind of slower or more cautious. Giving him those details of no, he's passionate, he's really invested in this case, that really amps him up.
Family.
I mean, yeah, there's a reason that franchise is still freaking going, and it's stupid, we all laugh at it, but it's a pretty good reason.
I haven't watched past 3.
Okay, well, you gotta get to the one where they re-bring in the family port, because it makes no sense. It's just really out of left field. We'll get to it.
We will.
Honestly, we might just jump to that one.
But I do like how this contrasts to the next scene with Carter. He's being a real Baron Munchausen, really hyping up his story.
He's such an ass, and I love it.
But it also shows that everyone likes to listen to him, but he also is it also shows that he's a lone wolf along with as Lee is.
He doesn't have a partner.
But also at the same,
no one will put up with him.
Yeah. But at the same time, people within his department don't like him.
No.
He's not a likable character to those around him. We like him as an audience because he's fun and entertaining. And
again, this is such a good play of having the Hong Kong, the kung fu style guy versus the over the top. He's hamming it up so much to be he feels like he's very good at his job. His numbers don't lie. Yes, he's destructive, but man, he's an ass to keep on the team. Oh yeah.
Well, and also that's the great thing too, is we get the people listening around him, but then when Johnson comes in, is going toe to toe for him. She's also a great way to bring in this counter. She seems like she's the one who will talk shit to his face when everyone else talks shit behind his back.
And this is where Ratner's picking of even the background people, even these people who were on for 5 seconds to a minute. He took the effort to pick people who had the gumption and the were ready to meet the same level of energy. And you can tell because it feels like they actually work with this guy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing he said too, is with his casting, he always was trying to be considerate of who they would be standing next to say, do they look good on screen together, or do their personalities work well together?
And he hit it on the nail with all the personalities. Because the people who he needed to butt heads with, he picked people who naturally were butting heads with each other. They worked great on screen. You can really tell the chemistry between these people.
Yep.
This is fantastic casting.
Yeah. And I also like the little relationship between the LAPD and the FBI at this point.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
I don't know the full history of the LAPD. I know they weren't really liked, and I don't know if they're still liked.
Well...
But I like that the FBI's first gumption is to be like, you know what? We're going to humiliate the LAPD even further by giving them this menial task.
Okay, this is a little tiny nod to just cop shows in general, especially 90s cop shows, because there was a move from, like, city-based cop dramas, which is where the buddy cop 80s really had its, like, home, right?
Mm-hmm.
To a more FBI and CIA, like, national, like, sized stuff in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I feel like this is a really good way of, like, tying those two interests together. Because the people who like a buddy cop are not the same people who like the FBI shows.
Mm.
Those are different shows entirely. And so but in this movie, you have to have them both. That's how this is working out. So having those two go ahead and play back and forth, I think ropes in more people.
Yeah, I can see that, because it's not just it also sets up Tucker as kind of an outlier within the LAPD, but also now he's going to be potentially the butt of someone's joke. Like,
yeah, exactly.
They're setting him up in a way like the movie I know you don't like Jim Carrey.
I sure don't.
But Fun with Dick and Jane.
Yes, okay.
Where he gets set up by the company and they're like, you're going to be promoted to our next CEO, and then right into the interview.
Yes.
It's that kind of setup, but without like the fallout, because Carter is so pig-headed about it.
And he can talk his way out of anything.
But I also like that the only reason he even gets involved is because Johnson tells him that, oh, by the way, you're probably getting suspended. And he's going to his boss to be like, I shouldn't be fired. And they're like, he's like,
should, though.
Yeah, he's like, there were explosions, but didn't nobody die?
Yeah, he's got a point. And, like, that's the annoying part, is he can talk his way out of anything. They pick such a, like, Chris Tucker's, like, quickness, the way he can deliver these lines, you really feel like he's talked his way out of so many problems.
Yeah, and it's because he's likable, but the thing is,
so
too,
likable,
like...
But he's also such a dick.
But his coworkers are also just... Here's the thing
They're so done with him, and you can tell.
Tucker's good, but he has that level of slight... I don't want to say it's stupidity, it's slight... overconfidence that he is the shit when he walks in anywhere, whereas he overlooks other people's resourcefulness, because I love how his boss spins it. It's like, hey, by the way, the FBI want you.
Not they need someone and we're sending you.
Yeah, it's also a way, it's again the Alfred Hitchcock ticking time bomb. We as an audience, we know that he's going to be the butt of the joke. He's supposed to be the butt of the joke for these guys.
And probably also not even really meant to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of sending him as just like you need the guy who's actually going to do all this stuff just needs someone to show him around.
Yeah.
And act a bit as a translator and, like, call it good.
Well, and that's the other thing with Carter, too, as a character, is he says he doesn't care about image a couple times in this movie.
He does,
but but at this time, his action and his sharp car, it's all just...
it's all for show.
Yeah, it's all showing, like, his outward appearance of, like, look at me, I'm a successful LAPD cop, guys.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but I do like his meeting of the team. This is where we get, like, some of that little physical, or not physical comedy, the verbal comedy. Because also we got to remember, Jackie Chan barely spoke English at this time. Yeah,
and granted, I know, like, he'd eventually made it kind of his thing, where he, much like Schwarzenegger, just decided, I'm going to keep the accent. This is going to be part of who I am. And also, like, I truly do struggle with this.
Yeah. But, like, when he's walking in, he's like, taps the guy, I'm going to need one of those earbuds ASAP.
Yeah.
That was all Tucker. That was all improv in the moment.
Yeah, it is so good.
But I also like that they're playing with him and saying, by the way, the task you're giving, they're spinning it, like, to make it feel impressive to him. They're like, oh yeah, you're going to pick this guy up, but it's G-14 classified.
Yeah, they're trying really hard to spin it so that he feels cool.
But I also like these little bit of details in Tucker's, like, ramblings.
Yeah.
Is where there's a lot of detail that's given away.
True.
Where he brings up that, I by the way, I already applied to the FBI, so you don't have to worry about that.
Great.
But it's also a good setup of forcing him to have a partner.
It really is. Oh, it really is.
Because when he goes to pick up Lee directly from the tarmac, Lee is not putting up with this shit at all. And this is where...
It's such a good play.
Yeah. And there's some of, like, the best lines of, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
It's all so arrogant, but it's unapologetically that 90s humor that he was so well known for. And with Jackie Chan being the straight man and the joke for these, like, for this beginning part of the movie, really eventually will play off so well where the roles get reversed, because you can't beat Chan's physical humor.
Nope. And also, like, his nonverbals in this one, too. Cause, like,
so good.
When he's like, don't even speak American, he's just kind of sitting there goofily smiling.
So good.
And also, I do love when he's calling the office back on a cell phone, by the way.
This is true.
This is 98.
Yep, we got those. They're ugly, but we got them.
I do like that because he's talking through a phone. Everyone's there and they're ready to hear, like, the like, oh, ha ha ha, we're in on the joke now too. We were waiting for this call.
Yeah, true.
And also, like, Johnson, like, saying, I hope you finally like your partner, and, like, the mic drop on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, it's a great thing too, because Carter blabbing gives Lee the whole rundown.
Yeah, he really does.
Without making it feel like it's super exposition-y of, like, oh, by the way, Lee, I gotta get you caught up on, here's where this is at, here's where that's at. He's just like...
It's such a great way of having the audience not have to re-listen to everything.
But also re-listen to everything.
Exactly, it's so perfect.
Because it's also kind of a joke, too, because he doesn't, as far as he knows, he doesn't speak English.
Yeah, he's just rambling to himself, essentially, as far as he knows.
Yeah, a man who likes to hear himself talk.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
But there's also some little bits here that if Carter had been actually paying attention to Lee,
he would have noticed.
There's a look of disappointment in his face, which is... Oh
my god, yeah.
Yeah,
I can't blame him.
Lee kind of figures out what's going on immediately.
Yeah, I mean, he's annoying, but he's not stupid.
No.
That's the annoying part of him.
Yeah, and to be fair, Carter isn't exactly giving him any... I've been calling him Tucker.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I think his name's actually Carter.
Yeah, James Carter.
Carter. Carter hasn't been giving him room to talk at all.
Well, that's true. Yeah, he hasn't breathed at all, but that's okay.
No. But I do. So this whole bit of them not communicating works really well.
It does.
But it also came from the actual language barrier between Chan and Tucker.
That's true, because Tucker just naturally does speak very quick. He's a fast-worded guy, and especially Chan at this point, like, his English was not great. No, like, honestly, that's the thing, is, like, we bring up he was in a few movies, but The Big Brawl in 1980 was his first Hollywood flick, and Rumble in the Bronx being his next big one in 1995. But even then, like, I know... And they weren't dialogue-heavy movies.
No, and that's the thing, is I know people who love Rumble in the Bronx.
Oh, yeah, totally. I can see it.
It's kind of become its own, like, cult classic one. I remember watching with my dad at one point, and he pointed out, by the way, Chan broke his ankle here. And so, like, you can see a part of the movie where he's got a brace underneath his jeans. Oh, yeah, no, it's definitely one that, like, if you're following Chan's history, watching his movies, it's a great one to watch. But, yeah, the progression of Jackie Chan's English speaking is not like a night and day like some other actors who have, like, moved from the Hong Kong scene or a lot of other scenes to Hollywood, where it's like, oh, they kind of quickly pick up either a different accent or, like, you can really see a difference in their dialogue, amount, or speed. Yeah. Chan's is a slow and painful progression throughout his career. And honestly, that's kind of what became enduring about him, was that, like, he felt very genuine in these roles of, like, the outside man. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's just that it's the little bit of, I think it's mostly from his vaudevillian days or vaudevillian inspirations, where he's a little bit bumbling. And he can rely so well on his physical humor, and, like, he manages to put himself in roles that, like, that language barrier isn't a huge problem. No. It honestly works better. Exactly. Especially these earlier movies. Yeah, this Rush Hour specifically, because I think they try reusing this gag, like, twice. And they do, and it's still funny, but it's not as funny. No, it's when you reuse it over and over again. And I think that's the thing, too, is, like, we've talked about in movies where it's the rule of 3, where you don't overdo a gag 3 times.
That's
unless
true.
you're
Really
making an inside joke. Yeah, like Wild Wild West, where he's like, that's a man's head. And he says it 4 times.
Because that's the funny bit.
Yeah. Whereas this, I think it goes to like, in one movie, that's fine. But in the sequels, you don't want to reuse that too much. Maybe use it in the next sequel, but not across 3 movies.
True. Granted, the sequels had some space between movies. The second one came out close-ish to the first one, but it felt like we had time to forget. So like when you watch them and you're not binge watching them, it does feel closer to less aggressive.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone watches these anymore like that, so...
No.
Oh, well.
Also, back to Chan.
Oh, yeah.
When Lee gets away on the tour bus...
Oh, yeah.
That's great, because...
It's great.
I mean, all this time, it's all because Carter is trying to be a maverick. He's like, okay, this guy doesn't know English. I'm just going to send him here. He's not going to know the way back.
I got this. I'm going to have it in the bag.
Yeah, overestimating himself as a cop.
Exactly.
And... also, he gets away again because Carter gets distracted in front of the group of Asian tourists. He's like, LAPD. And they're like, ooh, camera. He's like posing and shit.
This could have been so much easier.
And then again, when he does corner Lee, he gets his gun taken away because he's distracted to showing how good he is.
Exactly.
But it's also a way to, a little detail, he's carrying multiple guns.
Yes, it is a good detail.
Again, rules of 3, distracted, and just this scene alone. Each time he's distracted and Lee gets away because he's...
being stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and then the English drop is the great part of that.
It's a classic part of this movie.
Yeah.
You speak English this whole time?
Yeah, and then Lee has the audacity to call. I mean, not audacity. He's seen him, but call him out as arrogant. And it's just kind of funny because like they're both at each other's faces and
they've barely been together.
Kind of setting like their terms of like.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and also setting up their boundaries of like. The car spin by Chan was ad-lib, by the way.
True.
2 different types of ad-libbing.
Yeah.
Physical ad-libbing and Tucker's vocal ad-libbing.
And they balance each other so well.
But not only that, but the way they play off each other.
And honestly really ramp up the movie.
Yeah, because Lee did that, or Chan did that spin.
Yeah.
And Tucker could have easily just been like, oh, what was that? Instead, he plays off it and he's like, don't you do that again.
Yeah.
This is my car. Only I can do that shit.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it's a moment where he's kind of buddy copying a little bit, where he's like, okay, well...
You can see where it's going to go. You can see the payouts coming, which I like. I like that in a buddy cop film.
Because now it's just not, okay, I'm going to get you to the consulate. I'm going to take you along with the investigation because this is my job.
And, like, that's part of the fun of these sorts of, like, action comedy movies, is it's not that the end should be a surprise. We want the ending that we know is going to happen. It's the journey of how we got there that's the fun part. So, like, all the foreshadowing of, like, how stuff's going to go down with the 2 guns and the car, and the action humor of Chan already showing off a little bit, and, like, the quick-wittedness. Like, we already know what the end goal of this movie is, even if you've never seen it before. But now you're invested on seeing these 2 build up to that. Yes.
And we've seen a bit of Lee's world, but not a whole lot. But we don't have the need to build his world.
No.
Because he's going to be a little bit of a fish out of water in the U.S. because it's time for Carter's shakedown. And
true.
I do like this because there's, again, those little build-ups of, like, he's talking to people, saying words we can't repeat.
Exactly. It's funny because it is a 90s comedy and would not be doable today. I think it's still what if you said it in the past because of our lack of communication across the seas and the internet. So, like, there's definitely words that don't come across. And I think that's why Rush Hour holds. Like, there's a lot of movies that, like, the jokes or, like, the plot, depending on what movie you're looking at, like, they're not replayable, but also, like, they're a little cringe, and there's a lot of, like, oh, well, it was the movie of the time. I think the joke still stands. I just don't think anyone would do the joke today. No, of course they won't. I mean, hell, look at Tropic Thunder. Oh, well, we look at Tropic Thunder for a lot. But, like, no, I think it's not even that, like, the joke wouldn't land. I think it's just that, like, Chris Tucker's not acting the same way that he is. Jackie Chan's not the same guy that he is. This movie can't be reproduced. So this is like a once-in-a-lifetime joke.
Or more global is what it is.
Oh, 100%. And it's fantastic because it's a joke that even if you aren't allowed the word, it's still hilarious.
Yes. But I also like the tense build-up in the situation of Carter and just like making the play that Lee is taking it seriously.
Yes.
And
Lee being the straight man for a lot of these jokes is the best part.
Yeah, but it's also Carter can do his work alone.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was anything else, he would have just shown up there and be like, "What up, cousin? What's
100%,
going on?"
100%.
Yeah, but I also like that because Lee is so culturally awkward and oblivious. It gives that option, that availability to have some more action and show off his stunt work.
I also think it means that this movie, despite being painfully 90s in every sense of the word, it kind of almost makes it like a beautiful little timepiece as opposed to like awkwardly aging it.
Mm-hmm.
Because now instead of being like, wow, look at how silly this is, or oh, this wouldn't work today, it's like, no, this movie could still work today, but like, look at this time capsule, look at the fashion, look at how like young Chan is in his career, look at how funny Chris Tucker is here at this moment. You
say young in his career like he hasn't been acting for
I know, but like again,
years.
you have to remember that like an American audience, this for a lot of us, this was
I know.
And also like Chan I think just has baby face real good.
Yeah, but I do also like that like a child, he kind of runs to Carter for help because
and because like it's the one dude, this is his connection to town. Like he they don't want to admit it, but he does kind of need him.
No, exactly. But it also is like that bit that Carter clearly doesn't think he needs him. And it's shown with him going into like the convenience store of like, hey, I'm gonna get us a couple bean burritos.
Yeah.
And then cuffs him.
Yeah.
Once again, showing that he doesn't trust Lee and wants to do his shit alone.
That's very true.
Kind of the last of that though.
Yeah, no, from here on out, it really this movie moves quickly. We don't have time to keep this gag specifically running. They have to learn to work together.
Yeah, his overconfidence allows Lee to escape, and it's going to be in the next couple scenes that we get that little bit of, and I'll get into it.
Oh yeah, because even like the slow, like quote unquote, like this is arguably the slowest part of the movie is this setup between these two, and it's still not that slow because Tucker has not stopped talking the whole time.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's not a moment for silence in this movie at all. No, and that's what makes it great.
Oh, it really helps balance out the action part of this film.
Exactly. We're on to the console now, which the steering wheel still attached to his arm is kind of funny.
It is funny.
I appreciate that he found out how to get to this place with limited English and...
He's showing his, like, how good he is.
Well, we also don't have, like, he either had to buy a map or get directions.
I'm assuming directions.
Yeah. But it's also, like, the incompetent police work from them of just, like, action before, like, a typical American action before actually figuring out what the situation is.
True.
And I like that he just absolutely kicks every single FBI dude's ass.
It's really great.
And then takes apart the gun to show his dominance.
Just really good.
One-handedly takes apart the gun.
It's very impressive.
Yeah. And like I like that FBI of like there's been a mix up here, guys.
Yeah.
It's the Hong Kong detective.
Yeah.
And then Carter's return is also funny as well. And he's like, hey, look at this guy. Look at this guy.
And they balance each other out in like that awkward way because like them not coming in together means that you can really get the one last look at what they look like now. Because we're about to spiral.
Yeah. Well, and also this scene's great too because Carter they bring in and you think there's going to be a huge ass shooting. There kind of is a little bit ass shooting. But this is where Lee as a character really shines through as being the good guy.
True.
Because he's finally getting what happened to Carter on this. Of like, okay, this guy was brought in. He hasn't he
doesn't know.
Yeah. The Lee you can tell has figured out Carter's been kind of duped into doing this role. He's kind of being forced into this. And so like him sticking up for him and putting his neck out of like, Carter's been great for my investigation. I need Carter.
Exactly. Because they're going to take his word for it. He's the big hotshot.
Well, they can't piss off Han. They can't say, no, you can't have your guy, have our guy.
No, they can't take the backsies.
They have to collaborate.
Yes, exactly.
And also, I do like they're like, Carter, can you come over here? Oh, is this G-14 classified shit?
It's the jokes, and he does such a great job of bringing back little snips from earlier where you're like, yes, that's right.
Yep.
It ties it all together so sweetly.
And that's the only time it's used again.
And it's because from here on out, he's part of the group.
Or he's part of the joke.
Yeah, exactly.
He's aware that he's the joke now.
Exactly. Like, that bit is done. And that's, I think, what separates this movie from being the, like, standard American comedy action is, like, the bit doesn't come back.
Yeah, he's not the...
He's not the butt of the joke for the whole movie.
Yeah, he's not Paul Blart Mall Cop for the entire movie.
For the next 4 movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many of those.
It's only 2.
That's too many.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But I also like that, regardless of him getting chewed out, he still impulsively picks up the phone.
He can't not do it.
But his big mouth ends up being useful because it keeps the guy on the line, even though he's unintentionally useful.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah, and also I like him like wheeling and dealing of like, I don't even really work for them. He's not lying. He's just kind of being a dickhead in front of the FBI now.
It's so funny, and like again, like we're heavy-handed on the verbal comedy right now because we're about to be heavy-handed on the physical comedy later, and having those two balance means that there's not a weird action scene coming up where like nothing really interesting happens, which honestly is most action comedies nowadays.
Yeah. Or
vice versa, a lot of Hong Kong actions where it's like, wow, the dialogue section's really dragging me down, and then you get like 5 minutes of fighting. Like, man, we could have really squeezed this movie together. This is a good balance. This is keeping me interested.
Yeah. Well, and it's also interesting too, and we're engaged because it's going to be a raid, and Lee's being the voice of reason again. All the American agents
they're ready to go. They're gun happy.
They're we're gonna get this guy. We're gonna get you guys out of our hair, and we'll do our own thing.
Yep.
But Lee knows his guy. He's like, dude, do you think that they're asking for this money and they're gonna be staying here?
Exactly.
But it is a dope explosion and chase, though.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
But we also get, like, this is really kind of that showdown again between Sang and Lee, where it's, like, because he's let this guy go, he's coming back.
Exactly.
And now I'm saying that, it's exactly what they do in Rush Hour 3.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn it.
I'm glad you see that now.
Granted, I've only watched Rush Hour 3 once.
That's honestly maybe all you need.
And I actually like the French guy in Rush Hour 3.
I do too. And granted, there might be cause to rewatch all 3 again soon, so we'll see. Might get a chance to watch it more recently.
I don't have faith in if there's a 4th one coming out.
You know what? I like to have hope.
Yeah. But I do like in this chase scene that there's... The accident is caused by Carter not listening. And again, him allowing Sang to escape.
Yeah.
This time not through Lee's fault.
That's true. That's true. They both have made errors.
Well, now they're
they're in this together.
Exactly. And I do like that we have that bomb scene. And immediately Carter goes to Johnson, who's training for the bomb squad. Which... Good.
A great introduction.
Yeah, good turning around because after Lee sticking up for him, he starts to kind of need people for this because it's outside of his expertise. Exactly. Bringing the C4 back up because they found a detonator.
Yep.
And it's
tying it all back together.
And we bring Clyde back in too. That's
exactly.
Exactly. It's all these like little elements that have been put throughout the movie. Aren't just there to, like, introduce Tucker as this gung-ho cop, Carter as this gung-ho cop.
Yep.
It's to be like, okay, this guy is kind of in on this arms deal, but he's the outside guy who isn't supplying the C4. He just happened to get lucky with it this one time.
Exactly.
And it's also, I do like the way they show a lot of this, too. Or not show, they bring that up. Carter isn't a clean cop.
Yeah, which I kind of like. Because, like, it would have been easy to write him as a clean cop. Yeah, an annoying one. But, like, that would have been his, like, superiority complex, right?
Yeah, and it's always, like, little things. It's nothing like he never completely steps over the line. He's not
rotten. He's just complicated.
Yeah, because like the way they even get into this facility is that he tells the guard, he's like, "Do you want me to tell them that I bought that I know you bought weed?" And they're like, "But you bought it for me and we split it." He's like, "But did I give you the bigger half?"
But did this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna arrest me. I'm the cop.
Exactly. The corrupt LAPD. Who are they gonna believe?
And honestly, like, yeah, it does it like a little bit sour him, sure, but like I honestly think that like him willing to use whatever it takes to be like in his eyes the best cop is like, oh well, that's not really me being a dirty cop, it's I have leverage on this guy.
Yeah,
so that's how I got in.
Well, his last informant was his cousin.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
Yeah, no, exactly. He goes to his family for all this stuff,
which is so funny.
And they drop it to him because they know he's a dipshit.
Because he's stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also like this scene, too, because it turns the movie from this buddy cop comedy 100% to refocusing it to be about Soo Young.
Yes. Yeah, no, the focus on this one is really nicely done, because honestly, I think without that focus, it starts to feel a little bit like some of the cheesy TV shows in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And this is a really nice way of like having it stand out and also refocusing this on like a big plot, as opposed to like, oh, well, maybe this storyline will linger a whole bunch. We don't really want it to.
No, exactly. And it's just that like nice heartwarming moment of Lee being like, I don't care if I live, I don't care if I die, I just want her back. And also like Clyde turning it around and be like, stick around with him and he's gonna kill you.
Yeah, got a point.
Yeah. And we're on to the Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
This is the true, like, bonding scene in this movie.
It really is. It really is.
The martial arts mixed with the dancing together to war.
And, like, it's such a good playback because we've had all the elements brought to us. We already know who can do what, whose interests are where. Having it brought here is, like, a way of them bonding. And then, of course, knowing that we're going to get that payout at the end of this going to be, like, their thing. It's fun. Like, the way they handle it's really well done. I think you can really see the chemistry between the two actors here. Like, they're clearly having a good time doing this bit. Yep.
And compared to the FBI prepping is a nice showing of, like, forces working in opposite directions.
100%.
But it's also a good way to bring all three together. The crime organization, the two rogue buddies, and the FBI, which I do also love in this scene, which... They're staking out this Chinese restaurant, but they're only at the front. They
don't try any other door.
No, and on top of that, they go to get Chinese food from a vendor, and I love Carter's interaction with the Chinese guy. It's just responsive.
So stupid.
I know, punk ass bitch.
It's so good, but that became like a line for such a hot second after this movie came out. Like a bunch of us were quoting it.
Yeah, and also just like his like, don't you got all you got is a box of grease? Don't you got some fried chicken? Chinese food, no soul food.
Oh my god, it's so terrible, but it's so funny.
Yeah, but it's also a good way of bringing them together of cross-cultural exchange as much as we can within this movie being set in the US, because this is Lee's way of like kind of sharing his culture.
Yeah, I mean the way they handle it too is like it doesn't feel too sweet or sickly in any way. Like it feels very genuine to like these two characters that we've built up so far. Like Carter is not a like touchy-feely nicey sort of guy. Like having him constantly taking jabs at the food, at like what all's happening, like literally everything that possibly could happen to him. Well, it feels like it's continuation of who he is. Like he truly is that person.
Well, initially making fun of it, but then eating it. He's like, this is pretty good. What is this? Eel. What do you got? Camel's hump. And it just like it's that like nice cultural exchange, and then they start talking about their dads, and then they start shit talking each other like brothers.
Yeah, and like you can really see it build up together. It's good.
And then training him how to be an American cop of like, okay, you showed me your martial arts.
You gotta learn to shoot a gun.
No, you gotta learn how to flip a badge.
That's true.
That's the only thing he teaches him.
I mean, yeah, that's the only thing he actually learns.
Yeah. And also, I like when they do eventually get into the restaurant where it gets Carter to be his moment to be a fish out of water. Yeah. Where he's in Lee's restaurant compared to like where Carter would hang out.
Exactly.
And I like when they're like bringing the food by, he's like smelling it, and he's like
such an ass move.
And they're asking like, what do you want? He's like, how's your eel and how's your camel's hump? Because those are the only
things he knows.
Exactly.
But honestly, like, yes, his performance is like super over the top and it's fantastic. But it also like there is that like base level of truth of like, yeah, sometimes like when you don't know what else, you're going to pick the one thing on the menu you at least know.
Exactly.
Which is why there's chicken fingers everywhere.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, like, it's that little bit of, like, base level to all of his running jokes that really set this movie up. And it pays out, too, because, like, we are focused on him and, like, hoping that he makes it. So even the audience has a time to, like, kind of forget what Lee is doing, like, how he's building into this place, how he's also part of this operation.
Yep. And also, we get to see Jin Tao, finally.
That's true, who was a great first shock the first time I watched this movie.
Yeah, because you kind of forget that he's the white British dude.
You totally forget that he's the white British dude. And, like, I love that, like, Ratner talks about it in his commentary of, like, yeah, I wanted it to be this big, like, suspenseful action movie sort of reveal. So, like, we see the feet, we kind of see some, like, stuff on his desk. We get to see a shoulder before the big reveal. And it pays off because every time I'm like, oh yeah, that's what this guy looks like.
Again, it's giving us the bomb knowing that Han has someone in his corner who's against him.
Exactly. Honestly, even after watching this movie a ton of times, every time that scene pops through, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That is like the big moment. Like, even if you see it coming, it's such a well done shot.
Yeah, and also not just that moment, but also when Lee going in recognizes the necklace, saving him.
Yeah, immediately.
Because everyone there knows what Lee looks like.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so they're of course know what happened. Also, Carter is going in asking for Jin Tao.
Yeah, like an ass. But also, like, the way he's doing it is smart for, like, how he's done all the rest of his cop bullshit. Be like, no, I'm the guy's lawyer, let me in. He's gonna be super pissed if I don't see him.
Yep. And
it's, like, that for him, that's pretty smart.
Well, and it's also important that we get that reveal of Jin Tao because we know that Carter ends up talking out of his ass because he's like, oh yeah, I'm Jin Tao's half brother, you know, I'm black and Chinese, I'm Blackanese, and we've seen Jin Tao, so we're like, okay, you're a dipshit again.
You're super stupid, but okay.
Yeah, he's the joke.
Exactly, but it works. It's such a good like way of like setting him up. The joke pays off. It's perfect.
Yeah, well, and on top of that, like, not only is he the joke, but when Lee shows up, it just throws the
badge on the ground. It cracks me up every single time.
Yeah. Well, and also because, like, once they start getting into we do get to hit Carter beat up a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little action.
The line of, wipe yourself off, you're bleeding.
Oh, so killer.
Oh, dude, he is such a great villain.
Perfect. Fantastic. He's so scary.
I do need to see more movies that Lung's in, just because, like...
He does a great job in this movie.
Yeah, and I honestly couldn't tell you what else I've seen him in.
I didn't even bother to look. I will be, though.
But I also like once they do start getting into the scuffle, Carter is also using the environment as well, kicking the table out, like, acting like Lee a little bit.
Like, you can see the gears turning, but he can't keep up because Jackie Chan improvised a bunch of this.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. There's a chair in here. I'm going to use that chair. Oh, see this desk? I'm definitely going to flip the desk and do something with that. Got to definitely do some movement across here. And that's where Ratner's setup of, like, really showing off a room and, like, all the people in it pays off, because now we've got room for Jackie Chan to pull these cool big stunts.
Yes.
And you don't feel lost or like anyone else is confused.
Exactly. And it's just such a well-written, put-together movie. Again, all these, like, little elements are starting to...
They pay out.
Finally come together. And we do get, like, funny moments because, the restaurant explodes. And
which is hilarious.
Carter is like, is that my gun? That is my gun. Obsessed with his possessions a little bit still.
But also, it's kind of like a symbol of who he is as a cop, right? Like, the first thing he teaches his new cop friend is how to flip a badge. And then, like, the second thing that they work on is gun stuff. Yeah. That's, like, a huge part of who he is.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about them, like, flipping the gun back and forth on each other.
So stupid, and I love it. Because, like, this is the most dangerous, stupid thing they could possibly do. Because, like, they don't make any effort to show that they've, like, checked it's disabled in any way. They're just like messing with it.
And even then, if you're trained with a gun, you are told to treat the gun like it is always loaded.
Exactly. Never look at it. Never look down it. Never point it at anybody you don't want to kill. And they are just over here swinging it around, pretending to kung fu with it, and then he twirls it like he's a Western dude.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Every time that scene makes me so cringe, but also like that's such a stupid 90s cop thing, and I love it.
But it works so well too, though.
Yeah, because again, like the badge is a huge part of who he is, and the gun's a huge part of who he is.
Well, it shows that because the first time we see that gun flipping done, it's used in conflict.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's done of like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to do this. And it plays off.
And it also kind of feels like this is like the two of them really sharing each other again, because like he's taught him how to flip the gun, and now they're both working on like how to take guns from other people, but he's also teaching him like, hey, once you've got it, you're not supposed to disable the gun and not use it. Mm-hmm. You can't always rely on your hand-to-hand combat skills.
Yeah, you've been trained for like 30 minutes, man.
Exactly.
But they have done fucked up as the FBI arrives.
True.
And there's a great disappointment with Consulate Han when he says I can only rely on the FBI now, without like saying he's disappointed.
The drama.
Well, it's not even that. It's just
it's like the equivalent of when a parent's like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, and you're like, this is terrible.
Yeah, no, exactly. But here's the thing too: is I feel Lee would have been able to stay if Carter didn't drop Juntao's name.
100%.
Because Carter busts in trying to take the rap for it all.
That's true.
Showing his growth. He's now sticking his neck out for Lee, where he's like, Lee wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for me. He followed my plans. I'm the one who screwed up, not Lee. And
beginning of the movie, he would not have done that.
Yeah, and it's a good heavy moment to bring us into the third act of this movie. Mm-hmm. Because after all of that, Thomas Rat Bastard Juntao shows his face in the light of day.
Sure does.
He was a British dude having the last
laugh.
Or he was having the meal with them early on in the movie.
Yep.
So it's like finally like bringing those pieces together. Mm-hmm. And I do, like right after this, I do appreciate Carter opening up to Johnson of like, okay, I've been a shitty person. All of my actions have consequences. This really should be about the girl and not about me trying to get into the FBI to one-up everyone else.
Exactly.
It's no longer about me. Whereas this whole time, for Lee, it's always been about the girl. This is centering Carter on, I've been a dipshit.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
But he's still a dipshit too, because
he has growth. He has not changed.
Yes, exactly. Because even though he's talking to her, he's like, "What color pants did you wear?"
It's so stupid, but it's so funny.
But no, that's the thing is like he grows,
because that is who he is, though.
Yeah,
those wisecracks is just that is baked into him.
No, exactly, and there's that little bit of like. That's the one thing I do appreciate about this one. They didn't bring romance into it.
Oh, it's perfect that way.
There's a little flirtiness between him and Johnson, and it's like...
But that's all I need.
Yeah, if Carter had been like a little bit smoother, of course Johnson's going to fall for him.
100%. Yeah.
But they don't do that.
Nope, because we don't care.
Exactly. It's the bromance.
Well, and not just that, but it's assuring that our two main dudes are on the same level, which is, I think, part of the reason why this movie isn't just like, oh, Jackie Chan's a side character. No, they are truly both the stars of this movie on equal footing. And part of that's because, like, we don't get girls involved. It's just about them.
So I'm going to argue slightly against that.
Okay.
I do agree they're both important characters, but in buddy cop comedies, and I read this through the oral history of John Wick. If you get a chance, that book's awesome.
It is, yeah.
Because it brings about gun fu and the history of an oral history of action movies.
Sure.
But with this one, in any buddy cop comedy in general, one of the buddy cops is always the main character, and it's the character that shows the most growth, which is
100%.
Carter's character. Because Lee, as a character, he does open up, but Lee is the same character through and through this entire movie.
True. I think maybe he loosens up a little bit, but you're right. It's not nearly the growth that Carter goes through.
Exactly.
However, I do think that, like, with that thought, you have to also keep in mind that, like, you could apply that to anything, not just buddy cop. That could be every movie.
Oh no, that is every movie. Even if you have two like main protagonists, one is always the main protagonist whose growth story has to be slightly greater than the other person.
Sure. Though I will say that part of the reason Chan agreed to do this was because he was told he was going to be equal and not a side character. So like, don't put the man down.
No. I'm not calling him a side character at all. He is a protagonist. He's not, or no, he is a main. Here's how it is. He's a main character. He's not the protagonist. They're both main characters, but there's a difference between protagonist and main character.
I will accept this reasoning.
Yeah, but I also this movie also shows its age with Carter being able to sneak onto the airplane.
A little bit, yeah, because like that can't happen today.
Yeah,
you can't just hang out at the airport.
Yeah, you
can't even get in the airport before a certain time at some of them, which is annoying because I'm an early person.
Well, I also appreciate just this little bit in like the downgrade that Lee's having to face.
True.
He came here on clearly a private plane.
Oh, yeah. And now he's flying back and it's not even business class.
It's commercial.
Oh, man. He's sitting in economy. That sucks.
90s commercial, so a little bit more roomy.
A little bit more roomy, but the snacks weren't as good. Well...
they actually fed you back then, too.
They did. Well, I guess it depends on how far you're flying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
He's flying back to China.
Okay, they're feeding him.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it wouldn't have been... Oh, man, it's going to be a rough flight.
Yeah.
It's a long flight.
Well, and this is the bit, too, where we get the entire backstory of Carter, and I like that they condense it down into, like, 2 minutes. The reason he's a lone wolf is his father died because his partner didn't act, and so now he just trusts partner. And the little bit of... Here's why it works so well as a buddy cop, is because it's not just like, and now you've changed my mind. He gives him the challenge, prove me wrong.
Exactly. The two of them are both so stubborn that they work together well.
Mm-hmm. And we get the exposition of why Jintao is bad. Which
is nice. Yeah, because honestly, like, this movie's the, like, over-the-topness that, like, we didn't really need them to do that for me. Yeah. I would have just been happy that he is bad.
Well, it's great because it's just a couple of lines to get us caught up, and it's not an entire scene of trying to explain shit, because...
And I didn't get a flashback on explaining why it either.
Thank God, no flashbacks.
I know. No, it's perfect. It's just enough for me to be like, he has reason for being bad. Okay, go on board.
But it's also a necessary piece of exposition, because now it's to bring up the exhibit time.
That's true. It does get us from point A to point B.
Fun bit of trivia about this entire exhibit. It was shot on the sets of Golden Harvest Studios.
Ooh.
And this is where Chan got his first commercial success in China.
Good for them.
Yeah. They're on my list of studios to get into. I'm still in the Shaw Bros, but I'm slowly getting into Golden Harvest too.
We will definitely have to review some.
And here's what's great about this is, while yes, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
All of this, the money that he's trying to get, we learn is just for compensation.
Yeah, it's not even like exorbitant, really.
No, it's just like, all that stuff that you guys took back from me rightfully.
Yeah.
I was going to get a few million for that. You're still going to pay me for it, though.
Yeah. Got a point.
Yeah. But I also appreciate, like, we get this bit with Carter where he is putting the 2 and 2 together, really showing that, like, he's a good detective.
He really is a good detective. He's just annoying.
No, exactly, because he's putting this all together that he knows he's screwing up Juntao's plans, and that's why he's doing it.
Exactly.
He just jumps up and says, "Don't panic. Now get the fuck out, everyone."
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did cut something from this scene.
I agree.
He yells, "Titties, titties, titties," and they were going to, like, do a shot of a very busty woman running. Which
would have been hilarious, but also... not needed.
Yeah. No,
we're already at peak comedy here.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need the male bathroom humor.
No, because this movie already is pushing the 90s cop humor, like, and also just Chris Tucker's style of humor in general. And so, like, leaving it at just his signature style of humor that people were already familiar with, we didn't need to, like, push it. We didn't need to push the envelope in any way.
No, exactly. But the chaos is actually necessary too, because it allows Lee to operate without him being the focus. Carter's the focus.
Carter's always the focus.
Because we learned the bomb's actually on the girl. And I do have a question.
Okay.
So there's a guy guarding the van.
Yeah, there is.
if they decided to detonate that bomb right then and there...
Oh, he'd be dead.
Yeah, but do you think that guy knows that...
Yeah, 100% he does.
Okay, so he knows he's gonna be the...
Yeah, he's like the bottom man on the rung, and I'm sure they've spun it where this is like the honorable death for him.
Yeah.
It's like, you're doing this for the group, for the cause.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, for the cause!
Yeah.
And they're like, we'll only blow up the girl if it's the last thing we do. And he's like, yeah, that'll never happen.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of it with this too of, like, it puts So Young into clear danger. And not just that, but the event center as well. So, like, the girl is the ticking time bomb in this scenario.
Yeah, an interesting change of pace.
And also, it's that nice little bit of, not just the bomb bit, but, oh wow, the British ruler is really the bad guy.
It's a little on the nose, but it is very funny.
Yeah, but they're not like so in your face about it like some other movies that we'll be talking about.
It is perfectly subtle enough because this movie does a great job of balancing the cultural parts of this movie. Like, it doesn't ignore it, but in the same breath, they're like, that's not the focus. The focus is truly the two actors, the two characters.
Yeah, and also making Johnson a needed character as well.
Exactly.
Like, that's the thing, like, why when we talk about Pride and Prejudice and Kate Winslet bringing up that boy movies, because don't get me wrong, Rush Hour, is get marketed more towards guys.
100% it is.
But it's one of those movies that makes the female character necessary. Yeah, she's pretty, and Carter's got a thing for her, but...
But, like, because we nixed any, like, true romance, like, so that's not the focus, it gives room, because she's only got, like, 5 lines.
Yeah.
It gives room for her to just actually be a professional, and not just only here because of a love interest nonsense. Yeah, no, she's here because she deserves to be here.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Yeah, she's proven herself enough.
Exactly. And if you want to read between the lines or fanfiction your head after this movie, be like, yeah, they definitely, like, she finds him hilarious. There's room for that. And that, I think, is more powerful than actually, like, showing. Like, 9 times out of 10.
Yep, exactly. And also, I do appreciate at one point, Carter uses the trick Lee taught him with the gun.
100%, because now they feel like they've really bonded. They're truly friends.
Well, and also him being a dipshit, too, works so well in the scene, too, because he is the agent of chaos.
100%.
He's like, I've got an idea. Takes the girl.
Yep.
And he's like, by the way, yeah, you want to do it? Blow us up. Come on, do it. Whereas everyone's like, what are you doing, dude?
Even she's like, what are you doing? He's like, play along.
And she's like, yeah, do it.
Yeah. She's so funny. I'm a little sad she decided acting wasn't for her, because she's great.
Yeah. But it also gives the FBI something to focus on, because they get so focused on Juntao. Or they're so focused on, well, they're actually lack of focus because they don't know what's going on. Juntao's able to take them out and take his money.
Exactly.
But I do appreciate that, like, the vest is still live, even if they get it off, it can still detonate.
Yeah, it's still explosives.
And the whole bit of, take it over to Juntao.
That's true.
Just like, that's going to be the easy task of, climb all the scaffolding and take the bomb to this our guy with the gun.
Well, and like, the director talks about how they were going to do a much more complicated scene right here where there was going to be like some pulley systems and they were going to help each other up. And he went, and then we watched Jackie Chan just monkey his way up the ladder really fast, like shockingly fast, and we went, never mind. He just climbs it.
Oh yeah, well, this whole scene is so great for Chan because it really allowed, like, while the bar scene had him using the pool sticks and whatnot, it felt...
And it was very good.
It felt very Rumble in the Bronx still.
It definitely felt like a classic version, yeah.
But this one, it shows that the little comedy of, like, stop kicking me, because he's trying to save the artwork. He's not trying to defend himself.
Yeah.
And the way he's walking on the scaffoldings feels very Buster Keaton-like.
And honestly, like, this, I think, is for a lot of the American audience who was, like, this was their first big intro to him. This, I think, sold them on him being not just another kung fu actor. He had his own style, he had his own humor, and I think this scene is really where a lot of people, like, fell in love with how funny Jackie Chan really could be. Yeah,
I'm gonna say, because like I said, I haven't watched Rush Hour in a very long time.
Sure.
And I had seen Rumble in the Bronx.
Which is very good, but again, a lot of people hadn't seen it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, like, between the last time I'd seen Rush Hour and now, I had watched Rumble in the Bronx, and that's when I realized that Jackie Chan's comedy was Jackie Chan's martial arts was a form of comedy.
It 100% it is. And I do think that as his career has gone on, there are other movies that like better show off how well he blends his action and his comedy. But for a lot of, especially like early 2000s, which is where we were heading after this, a lot of those movies relied a little bit more on a more Americanized version of Jackie Chan's humor, and I think this scene shows it off really well. And a lot of people fell in love with this sort of thing, and then let him have room to really develop such a signature style of acting and who he was.
Yeah, I still need to see like the tuxedo, and wasn't he a babysitter in one of them, or was that Chris Rock? Not Chris Rock.
Like over 100 movies, man.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, I love Jackie Chan, and like, if he's one of those names that if he's on a movie, I'm probably gonna like it, I'm probably gonna watch it. But I have not watched all of them by a long shot. There's too many.
I actually think at this point I'm more familiar with Jackie Chan's Chinese movies than I am American.
And honestly, like, that's not a bad thing, because, like, he didn't fully switch over. Like, these even got new ones. If you're a Jackie Chan freak, I do recommend watching his foreign films, not just his Hollywood films.
Start off with Fist of the Drunken Master.
Oh, it's so good.
Hands down the one you gotta start with, and then go to Police Story.
100%. But even his, more recent foreign films that he's been in, they're still so good. Even the ones where he's not as actiony, because I know which one you're thinking of.
I'm thinking of many of them.
I know. I really like them. I really like them because they are so different. They are not the style we're used to. They feel very soap opera-y a lot of times. And I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's very different from his beginning roles, and it's very different from his Hollywood career.
Those ones I'm definitely there for, more for the eye candy.
I totally get it. I totally get it.
But also, I like saying in this bit too, because he is so manic. Like when he's got the machine gun, he's just like spraying everywhere. He is their version of Tucker, but quieter.
Oh, 100%.
And also just like the way he fights it, like Tucker, it cuts into his ego. Like where he's got the like they're standing off with each other.
Yep.
Neither wants to die.
Exactly.
And so he's like, fight me like a man. And so, like, they throw their guns, getting ready to fight.
Yeah, throw down.
And then Tucker pulls his hidden gun.
Woohoo! I love when something, like, comes back around.
Yep.
And this movie does a great job of that.
Well, it's good to his death, too, because it brings another thing back around, where he's like, throws a handkerchief on him, wipe yourself off, you're dead.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, I think this is a nice duality between Jackie Chan's character, who, like, really doesn't need a gun. And I know, like, that was part of it where, like, they were going back and forth and he was kind of showing off, like, no, you're in LA now, you probably need to...
You're a cop, you're fighting against armed underground dealers? What?
Yeah, arms dealers.
No, they're not even, as far as we know, they're an organized criminal organization that steals art.
That's true, yeah.
That's all we know about them.
White collar crime. Yeah. But, like, I think it goes back to, like, showing off that, like, you know, we say that, but, like, the movie shows that Chan's character doesn't really need a gun. But Carter's character, like, that character does. That's part of who he is he is a gun-toting cop. Yeah. He's an American cop.
America.
He's an LA cop.
He's got 20 other guns hidden that we never see.
Probably.
But I think it's also a great death for Juntao, because him falling just it's this, I know it's not supposed to be poetic, but it's also like, he's falling from a high place of position. Yeah. He's falling from wealth because he's lost all his money because it falls out. Yep. And it's a fall from grace for him. Not that he ever had grace, because he's
stealing children, but yeah.
Well, not just that, he's also been, while ruling over Hong Kong, he's also been running their underground crime syndicate.
That's a good point. But yeah, no, I know it wasn't intended to be like this magnificent scene, but I think it kind of turned into it.
Yeah. Well, I love it too, because Carter is like, oh shit, money. Money.
So good. There's never not room for comedy in this film, and he always hits the nail on the head.
Well, it also doesn't go off in like an explosion like the last couple conflicts.
That's true.
And also, like, this also is the moment that Carter is proving himself to be the partner.
Mm-hmm.
Not just that Lee is a good partner and is proving him wrong. Carter is now stepping up to be that partner.
Very true. Very true.
That fall was real, and that is scary as shit.
It is
Holy
very
shit.
dangerous, and he did it twice.
Yeah.
Because the first time he did it, he wasn't flailing enough. He fell like a brick, and he was like, "You're not a superhero. Wave your arms and legs a little bit." And he's like, "I can do it again." He's like, "I guess."
Chan didn't like doing that stunt.
No, and I love that he's like, "Okay, can you do this?" "I don't know, hold on." And he sends one of his younger dudes up there, does the stunt. He's like, "Well, he lived. I can do it."
Yeah, no, exactly. But there's also that little bit of comedy where he's kissing him, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm being polite. Next time, be polite to my nuts."
So stupid. It's so funny.
But it works so well.
And it just solidifies that, like, character-wise, they are still the same people. But they have gotten a little more mature.
Yeah.
They figured out how to, like, maybe balance a little more. They're still idiots.
Carter
more than others.
Carter's the idiot. But in a lovable way.
A great way.
But I also like Soo Young in this with a little bit of returning the necklace. What took you so long?
It's so cute.
Yeah. And also with the airport and it's vacation time. Love how he tells the FBI to fuck off of like.
Yeah.
But it's also his final like bit of growth of he doesn't need the FBI.
Yeah.
He's found his identity within the LAPD, which is never used again in the next two movies.
Yeah, okay, that is the one thing, is like the next two movies are in theme the same, but they don't build off of any of, because they kind of set up a lot right here. They set up like, oh, he's going to Hong Kong on this vacation reward. They're setting up his like how loyal he now is to the LAPD because they kind of like stuck with him during his asshole phase. I would argue he's maybe not over that phase, but you know, growth or some bullshit. And like the next two movies are just like, yeah, whatever. We're just, you know, it's gonna be these two guys again, but don't worry about it.
Yeah. But it also ends with a couple jokes, which I think is a great way to end this one because it starts off serious and ends in comedy with Carter speaking Chinese, which I'm usually not a fan of bloopers. But
I love the bloopers in this one though.
I like the blooper on this one because Tucker had a hard time like saying his line, and Chan's over here like, look, I can speak English this whole movie, and he can't even say two lines.
Which is hilarious, because, like, earlier in the movie, they asked Chan if he can speak Mandarin instead of Cantonese. He's like, yeah, of course I can. Turns out, no, he cannot. And they're like, don't worry, none of the American audience will know that he messed up.
And also, like, them still butting heads at the end, just that little bit of, with Lee putting on headphones and singing War, and Tucker's like, or Carter's like, get me another seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a great way to end it.
It's so good. And I do like that this is one of those 90s movies where, like, once the movie's done, credits play and, like, the bloopers roll throughout the credits. I like that. I like that old tradition. I know it's not a thing anymore. I like it. I miss it. I feel like this is a good movie to have bloopers on, too, as opposed to, like, somewhere it feels like a little, like, oh, we're just putting in some B film. Like
the the one that
you don't
I hate,
like the animated ones.
For the most part, I hate the animated ones because it's not that authentic feeling of a blooper. It's just that super fake forced of like,
because they had to animate it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I think the only time it ever works is when the voice actors mess up and they go ahead and animate the voice actors messing up.
The best ones are South Park. Just like watching them and the other guys like behind trying not to laugh.
Those are good. I think these ones worked so well because, like, when you watch this movie and knowing even 4 seconds worth of fun facts about it, you know that there's probably reels worth of bloopers that we will probably never see because the amount of, like, lines that they talk about how nobody could say them or Chan couldn't say them, the amount of times that Chris Tucker retook something because he thought of something funnier to do or did it a different way. We will never know the true humor that happened on set. Yeah, but I like the little tidbits.
Yeah, no, I think that's great though because it gives that little bit of behind the scenes, like little we're in on the joke a little bit too of like 100%. This was fun to shoot. It wasn't just a job.
And we've talked about this before. A movie that people, even if it's not a comedy, even if it's a horror or just a straight action film, movies where everyone is having a good time creating it are always going to be more fun to watch than movies where people are just doing it for the check.
Yeah.
And you could tell that people were having a good time making this film.
Yeah, looking at you, Jaws 4.
Yeah, well, try not to.
But I think that's the thing with Rush Hour is that this one really holds up still because while it's
still so funny.
We keep talking it's 100% 90s humor.
It really is.
It's cheesy in all the right ways, but I think once you rewatch it, it's written so smartly and it's executed just to the like perfect level of everything just comes together. There's not a loose thread.
No.
It's also a great setup for a sequel.
Oh,
like,
it's fantastic.
That's the thing is like I hate when movies set up sequels and they bomb 100%. And
I
they
agree.
don't even try and change the ending because they're like, maybe it'll do well enough we'll get a sequel. Instead, this one's like, okay, we're gonna do it. This is the logical end. Mm-hmm. Carter gets a reward for all the stuff he's done. He gets vacation, but hey, it also if they ended it there,
then we'd be happy.
That's a good ending.
Oh, 100%. And I think the other thing that really makes this one stand out is because we have two very different humors happening. Mm-hmm. On top of a different, like, the writers had a different humor than Chris Tucker had that brought to the scene. Mm-hmm. Having those three different elements all play together means that you're not, like, cornered out of a comedy movie, which happens a lot, especially a Hollywood one, because they're usually very narrowly targeted. It's usually a very specific type of humor. Having all three people like come together and like have different parts that are funny in different ways and balance each other out mean that this is a really easy watch for just about anybody. Yeah,
it's got a little bit of everything. It kind of makes me think of like what Ridley Scott did with Gladiator, where he's like, okay, well, that's the reason it's got such a wide appeal is because, we've got the action for the men, but the women are there for the love story. This appeals in both ways. We got Carter's verbal comedy. We got Jackie Chan's martial arts.
Yep.
And physical comedy.
And honestly, the directing and writing also brought a different level of humor too with the way things are shot. There's a lot of just like little bits of little like fun tidbits throughout that make it really enjoyable to watch the whole time.
Yeah. And that's what's kind of sad for me too is I watched all three Rush Hours.
Yeah, I totally get it.
And
they do not hold up.
Yeah, the second one's funny enough. I like the second one.
I do too, but it's not this. It doesn't come close.
No, but that's the thing too. Is like I was rewatching Rush Hour 2, and I'm sitting there, and it's like I don't remember most of this movie, and then they got to this only scene that I remembered.
Yeah,
and it's the spa scene, and
that's the only scene I remember half the time too.
But here's the other thing: I didn't remember the second half of the spa scene. I only remember opening up the doors and Carter picking out like you can do my legs. Oh, what can you do? Like,
yeah, like that's the frustrating part is both 2 and 3 do not hold a candle to 1. They have some scenes and some jokes that are funny because again it's Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan and you're gonna have some good bits, but that formula that they had just doesn't quite translate. I don't know if it's because we didn't manage to keep similar storylines or if we were just really just cash grabbing it in and it wasn't as ideal.
Yeah, well, here's the thing that I think happens is because one established the buddy comedy.
True.
It's hard to continue that bromance in a compelling way.
It is.
And that was my biggest complaint with Rush Hour 3 is the bromance was almost missing. And I get it was part of the plot of them trying to reconnect.
Yeah.
But it kind of killed the rest of the movie as Lee is trying to connect with Kenji, which honestly though, Hiroyuki Sanada, best part of Rush Hour 3.
Oh, I totally get it. This movie, though, despite the other two honestly really not doing that well, this movie did great right off the get-go. It made money. Critics loved it. Speaking of critics, Rotten Tomatoes. You know it. Yeah, I know it.
I don't use it, but...
So, Rotten Tomatoes was originally created by Shen Dong, who was a huge Jackie Chan fan.
Okay.
And he had followed his Hong Kong career and heard that there was going to be a Hollywood big release of Jackie Chan and was very excited for it. And he had been collecting all of these reviews on Jackie Chan for a long time. Big fan, right? And so in 2 weeks, in anticipation of Rush Hour, he created the website Rotten Tomatoes. So essentially Rotten Tomatoes is a Jackie Chan fan site.
Alrighty. That is something I was not aware of.
And so yeah, that was the original reason for Rotten Tomatoes, was to keep track and get other fans on board and just as excited as he was for the rest of Jackie Chan's career, and it kind of evolved from there into just general reviews.
You know? Good on him. I mean, I don't...
Good for him.
I get the purpose of the website. I don't use it.
I like seeing where a review lands because I do think it's interesting to see where critics and fans differ. Mm-hmm. And I don't think having one website is ever the way to go, right? Like, I think you gotta kind of pick and choose from different websites because different fans are going to end up at a different site. I do find it hilarious that on Rotten Tomatoes, the first one did great, and 2 and 3 are very lowly scored.
Nice.
But, yeah.
Interesting. So, Chris, what do you rate Rush Hour at the end of the day?
This is just good for me. There's no weird to it. I don't think there's any bad for the first one, standalone. This movie's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, I'm on that same boat. It's a solid good for me. Mm-hmm. I regret not having rewatched it in recent times until we did this review, just because it's such an iconic movie. And it's such peak for what I know of that era. And like you bring up Rush Hour to everyone. I don't think I've ever met someone who hates Rush Hour.
No, it is a movie that unfortunately I think a lot of us, we all love it, but we have forgotten when the last time we saw it. And even if you are a Chris Tucker fan or a Jackie Chan fan or hell, even a Ratner fan, all of those guys have so much under their belts now that are also good that you kind of just forget this movie happened, which is terrible because this movie's hilarious. It's so funny. But yeah, I'm also sad that I was in a drought of Rush Hour. I shall amend that immediately and make everyone I know watch it again.
I'm all there for it. So I assume you recommend Rush Hour.
Wholeheartedly. This is a comedy that I honestly think just about anybody will find funny. It has something for everyone, even if it's not your normal, like, go-to reach for a comedy go-to. This movie's so well written, it's so well acted, the comedy on both Chan and Tucker's sides are so well balanced. This movie's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely recommend. Bringing it up to my parents, they rewatched the first one and then watched the second and third one and had the exact same thoughts as me on, like,
I feel like everyone in general should just end with one. The only reason I might go back and rewatch 2 and 3 is there's a couple of funny gags from 2 that I do like. There's a few lines from 3 I think are funny. I probably won't revisit 2 and 3 unless 4 gets made. I know Chan has agreed to 4 finally. I know someone has bought the rights to 4. Other than that, I couldn't find anything on actual dates or like filming or anything, so it's probably not going to happen.
We'll see.
I mean, they'd have to be way different. Both of these guys are much older than they were.
Yeah. I kind of would actually like to see a geriatric...
That'd be funny.
Buddy cop movie.
That would be hilarious. If they could spin it right, where it's like, yeah, these 2 retired idiots, that'd be great. But until that happens, I'm probably not going to touch 2 or 3 again. I don't blame you, so... But it's that time of the show, Season 6 Bingo. New season, new game. Chris and I are playing Bingo, and you can too. Rules for players are simple. 1 stamp per card per episode. Cards can be found on our socials at TGTBTW _ on Instagram and Threads, and TGTBTW podcast on Twitter. Or you're free to email us at TGTBTW _ at gmail.com. You can use any of these 3 bingo card variations, but each stamp must be associated with a Season 6 episode. First place is chosen. Thank you again, Riley. Second place gets to choose a deep dive into a microview. Third place gets to choose 2 microviews. Fourth and fifth place gets to choose a microview. So feel free to share it with us out on social media for participation. Rules are slightly different for Chris and myself. We only get 2 stamps per deep dive. First to get to bingo. Gets good, bad, and weird, but we've already done that, so... Now we're just playing for funsies.
Exactly. Chris, what do you got today?
I won't lie, I'm running out of spaces.
We might be at the end of bingo in general.
We might be, unfortunately, at the end of bingo in general. I'm gonna have to go with a clearly avoidable obstacle on my bad card, because honestly, half of this movie could have been avoided if Carter had just done his job in the first place. Won't lie.
Oh, so you might have died.
That's true. That's true. And then the only other one I'm even going to stretch for is the how is that even food for the camel hump joke.
Yeah, I'm going to look up in my Chinese cookbook on that because it's like...
Are camels from China?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's camels in their deserts.
Do we eat camels in China?
So here's what I'm thinking. So there was a restaurant we used to go to in Slovenia, and it had ants climb log.
Is this like
It's an actual dish. So like
I'm assuming it's like our version of Antilog, which is raisins on peanut butter.
No.
Okay,
no. It's I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's nothing.
Are there
like
ants
our...
involved?
No.
Okay, then it is kind of like ours. No ants actually involved on Ants on a Log.
Okay, in that terms, yes, but not in terms of ingredients.
Oh, sure. I don't expect most of the world to eat celery with raisins on it. Feels a little unhinged when I say it out loud.
I actually learned of a Chinese trend on their netizen websites of packing American meals of just raw vegetables and sandwiches.
Look, we're not good at lunches. The rest of the world don't eat what we do for lunch. Go straight to the dinner options. That's where we shine. That and breakfast. American breakfast is pretty dope.
I don't think I eat a lot of American food myself.
I know you don't. That's why I'm saying don't eat our lunch.
Okay. I'm going to go with weird.
Okay.
Nico's actually nice to the French because I said I did like the French guy in Rush Hour 3.
That's true. You did say that out loud.
I did. He is actually probably my favorite character of that movie, unfortunately. And I couldn't find anything on my bad card because
we're running out of spaces pretty hot and fast.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting a second bingo on my good card for a solid kill.
Nicely done.
2 solid kills.
That's true.
But traffic doesn't stop for the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast with the end of Rush Hour. We have one more micro review next week with Jackie Chan and another actor that Chris mentioned on the episode.
Very true.
And it's another start that kind of leads into our next pairing of episode and micro review. So in a way that you don't know yet.
It all ties together so well.
Kind of.
Sorta.
Yeah. But anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.